anybody needs, because I think this is extremely important for us, and we somehow, it doesn't stick to our set of priorities when we are busy with our professional commitments, right? So I have been a corporate executive myself before joining. Of course, Happiness Factory also qualifies to be a corporate, but having said that, the whole functionality is very different, and that is the reason why I mentioned that I was a banker earlier, so I know typically how it takes a lot of toll on us in terms of fulfilling our corporate commitments and also having that balancing act done. So thank you so very much being part of this particular session. Very happy new year to all of you. Stay blessed, right? I would also want to give a huge shout out to my friend Shivani Arni, who helped me to connect with Vikas for this particular session. So thank you, Shivani, for the same. A quick introduction about the company that I represent, Happiness Factory. And let me tell you, it truly, reflects the name in every action that we do, right? And that is why I'm very, very proud to, inform that we are catering to about 4,000 happy families, not just in India, but across 15 countries. And that is definitely a major, event or a major milestone that we have achieved with assets to the tune of about 4,500 crores that we are managing for them. And all this would never have been possible had we not had a very passionate team thinking always about what is right for our clients and doing every bit and, walking that extra mile to make it happen and see a smile on our clients' faces. We have offices in Mumbai, Bangalore, Kolkata, and the US as well. So I think I would just want to give a quick introduction about where we come from, how the journey has been, because that clearly means what is it that we carry, during our journey, which has helped us, bring this particular session to you, because it's all about a collective learnings that we have had over the last, 17 years that we've been into this business, right? So one of the very, very early learnings that we had during our, journey was the fact that, every individual, every family, every professional is so very different. So it cannot definitely be a one pill solution for everybody, right? And that clearly made us, do a lot of, brainstorming to come to a conclusion and a consensus that we need to have very, very exclusive practices to cater to different segment of professionals. Today, we're very, very happy to announce that we have quite a few very exclusive practices which we built in-house within our own company through this collective experiences that we have had with our clients, that basically caters to CXOs as a segment of professionals, business owners, celebrities, doctors and surgeons, parents of children with special needs. I mean, that is one segment that I'm very, very sensitively attached to it, because I know what it takes for that kind, of situation to be in, to be, really having that apprehension of what next, after them, as far as the parents are concerned, the constant worry that is there in their minds, right? The NRI segment, that is yet another very huge segment, and I'm very proud to, state that I am basically spearheading that particular initiative in this organization, in terms of it catering to the NRI space, right? And of course, retirees is one big segment of my clients. So today, whatever I'm going to be talking to you is all about what I have had conversations with my clients and what it means to genuinely have the second innings to be truly wonderful. And I would like to start this session by saying that, retirement, let me tell you, is absolutely wonderful, and I've seen it happen in front of my eyes for a lot of my clients. When you have two things, that's very critical to make it happen. Okay, one is you need to know, what is it that you would want to do in your second innings, this new phase in your life. How well are you going to adapt to it? How well are you prepared to, have that in your complete control, right? And the second and a bigger thing where probably I come in, of course, even in the first part, I have been an anchor for many, but I think the second part is where I probably play a higher role or a bigger role, which means in terms of knowing that you're truly sorted, that you have enough to be able to make it happen for yourselves, right? So great. Retiring by choice. And I think this, over the last few years, I think probably about 5-7 years that I have been working with the CXO segment, this is something that I have seen is, really, really fast. That's happening with a lot of CXOs, and that is effectively wanting to retire by choice. And that's a brilliant space to be in, isn't it? I mean, to be able to retire by choice, right? And it could be either that they want to retire early to be doing it. And that is one thing that's, again, a trend that is coming in, okay? Or rather, in the last 5 years, I think I've helped quite a few CXOs in this space who clearly are very, very ready to, hang up their boots and start the second innings, and they truly are wanting to make it golden innings for themselves. So retiring by choice, doing what I want, when I want. This is the ask that they have when they decide to hang up the boots. And this is what we want people to do, because when we talk about retirement, it means different things to different people. The sentiments attached to it are very different. And I know, what it takes to, maintain that equilibrium to really, take on this second innings in a brilliant fashion. So let's start with the retirement attitude. As I said, because I have been managing CXOs for a sizable period of my, work life, I have seen different segment of professionals having different retirement attitudes. Okay, I have known of people who are absolute workaholics. For them, life is all about work. There is nothing beyond that, and they can't think of life beyond that. So retirement somewhere is just not in their, in their total sheet, not even like in the list of priorities. It doesn't come up anywhere, right? Till the time that they can work, they would want to continue to do it, right? The second category of people that I've dealt with is typically the normal traditional set of people who would wish to retire at the normal traditional retirement age of 60. They know that, yes, this is a time that, I would retire, and probably whatever I have to, I will continue my second innings there. This is typically an acceptance model that, people get into, saying that, yes, this is the ultimate culmination of my work life. The third and the subsequent circles, the outer circles that you see, are the kind of category of CXOs that I am today seeing that is really, really visible in terms of the mindset change that is being brought across, right? I want to take a break or sabbatical. Well, I mean, earlier we would have thought probably, women, while they might be holding very responsible positions in their careers, probably would want to take a break or a sabbatical to look at the other side of their life, which is probably taking care of their child in the initial years, and then get back to work, with a vengeance at probably in a gap of about 2 to 3 years or so. But today, I know a lot of people who are taking this sabbatical because they want to try their hand at something new. They've always wanted to do something, but they've realized that, managing their corporate role 24/7 and also, trying their hand at something might not go hand in hand. Right? Because the ask is very high. The kind of responsibilities that we are talking about is extensive. And so there is no time, there is no bandwidth, there is no mind space that you can think of to think about something different. And these are the people who are, a little aggressive by nature. They would want to take this break, take a chance at doing something that they've always wanted to do. And they're very clear that, they will give themselves maybe a year, 2 or 3, whatever it could be. And if it doesn't work, they can always come back to their corporate role, right? There are yet others who I feel, very sorry for. Effectively, they would want to retire early, but they just don't know if they can. And I know of a lot of people in my close quarters where I have seen that this probably comes, in the backdrop of a sense of insecurity of the job, or not, really happy with the role that they are currently playing in the organization, or the fact that probably, ailment or something that kind of stops them midway, and they really might have to hang up their boots, but they're very, very scared, very worried in terms of what to expect next, right? Because they don't have anything ready. They're really not sure if they can, handle this, second innings with a sense of pride that every working individual wishes to do. And this is one segment that I'm working with very closely, in terms of ensuring that they're able to take this up in their stride, right? I want to quit my job and join a startup. I'm sure today a lot of CXOs want to be entrepreneurs. They are, they want to bring their experiences, their expertise into this new thing. They would want to probably start something of their own, that is their baby. They will bring in all this and try to make it big from their own, right? And that is, yet another set of CXOs that I know of who have left their plush CXO role and, have started as an entrepreneur and doing pretty well for themselves. Well, the last circle that you see, the outer one, the plan to retire. I mean, these are the absolutely sorted lot of professionals. They have been very clear, at a very early age, in life, where they realize that, yes, I'm going to be working for the next 10 years. These 10 years is what I'm going to be, giving it my 110%. This is probably at the age of about 35 when, they've started thinking that I definitely want to hang up my boots by around, say, 40, 45, probably. I think 40 sometimes is a little too aggressive in their thought process, and you have to kind of mellow them down. But I have seen people actually achieving this milestone of actually being able to hang up their boots at a very young age of 45. In fact, a lot of them are currently looking at 50 as the new 60 today, as far as retirement is concerned. But yes, they have a plan to take it forward, and that's a brilliant space to be in. And this is what we all should ideally aspire, that we are ready to take the plunge. We have everything it takes to absolutely meet our second innings in a brilliant fashion. But before we do that, we need to know what are the mistakes that we should avoid. And
hey Ranjani, I'm sorry to interrupt. Great going. But on your screen, there's a small bar is coming at the lower side, which will say stop sharing or hide. Can you click on hide so that, yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I did
Thank
that.
you.
I did that. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Vikas. Thank you so much
Go ahead,
for
please.
pointing that out. Yeah. Okay. So common mistakes that you need to avoid during work life. I'm sure these are mistakes that we've seen, it happening with somebody or the other time and again, right? But somewhere there are a lot of learnings. I mean, if we want to really make our, second innings truly something that we can, lead that with pride, then this is something that we need to be extremely cautious and, take this up very seriously. I think one of the first very critical aspects is not saving enough for your retirement. I mean, these are people I have known effectively living for today, especially the young lot, who effectively have achieved pretty much at a very early age. And these are the professionals who really want to bask in that happiness, in the sense of pride that they have really achieved that at such a young age, right? And they want to have a particular lifestyle to be able to enjoy that, which is great. Of course, it's a well-earned one. But having said that, there is something that you need to think about, which is for your tomorrow. And if you do not start early on in terms of saving enough for your retirement, it can clearly have a huge cascading impact, because we know that we have a stringent deadline if we want to ensure that we want to make this early retirement a true real thing, and not just let it stay as a dream for us, right? So one of the biggest I think pieces of very small advice here would be to ensure that we need to clearly start targeting having a clear threshold for saving. And we normally tell our clients, whatever be your earning, whatever be the rent, income that you are making a month on month basis, please try and have a savings budget of at least 30% of your take home income. This is going to ensure that one is in good stead, as we move further on, because it's now the ladder is only going to be going on to an upward swing. So, this will continue to be maintained, even in the future years of our work life, right? Saving without a plan. I mean, see, one of the things, when it comes to Indians, probably, that has been inculcated at a very early age. Even before we start working, our parents typically tell us that, boss, once you start working, you need to set aside something, probably buy have a roof over your head. These are some of the typical advices that we do get from our parents when we start working, which is a brilliant one. Okay. And I have known of a lot of people who save sizably, but they just do not know what next with it. If that saving is going to die out, not really making money for you, then that saving is definitely not helping you in the long run. So clearly, saving needs to ensure that it can be optimized, and that means that it necessarily needs to have a plan. Starting to save too late is yet another situation. As I said, typically the initial years that we saw, it is about, maintaining a lifestyle, enjoying all that you're earning. But, slowly, then it's about, the responsibilities that we try to justify and effectively end up having paycheck to paycheck kind of a situation, right? That definitely does not give us a shield to say that we cannot save. I think that clearly is a mistake on our side. We cannot afford to take shield under that, because we know what kind of repercussions it can have at a future date. Not really having enough when we want to hang up our boots. Think of a condition that, because we have not done the necessary thought process, I mean, the deep dive into what is required, and we have not saved enough. I mean, it is so painful to, realize when you actually reach that stage of wanting to take a plunge, you don't have enough, and you need to again restart, probably working as a consultant. I have known of a couple of them, who have been in this phase as well. So please be very clear that if we want to make it happen, it's all, in our hands. We can't have any kind of a miracle or a magical wand to do it for us, right? We have to go the hard way. Living burdened with debt, that is yet another thing. I think, India as a society has probably changed quite a bit. The cultural thought process clearly has undergone a vast change. We want to be aping the West for everything, and this is yet another thing that, which earlier probably, we were always told that if we have enough, we buy things. If we don't have, we don't go and buy. But today, e-commerce, or you name it, everything is making it so easy for us to own stuff. It could be in the form of a property, it could be in the form of a gadget, you name it, you have everything, right? And the plastic card that we talk with so much of pride of owning one, that could be one of the biggest, disaster situations if not managed well, right? So living burdened with debt, clearly we need to understand what is the kind of debt we should get into. We have good debts, we have bad debts. What is the level of debt that we should engage ourselves into? That's a very, very important, situation that we need to think about, because not many times, for whatever reason, we tend to go overboard. I have seen this happening with a lot of them. The earning is X, and effectively the kind of borrowing that we have is almost 70-80% of the take home. And I'm telling you, I've had situations during the pandemic where there are families which have undergone a lot of trauma on the financial front because of the debt structure that they have gotten into. So please, take one small lesson out of this, that please don't be burdened with debt. And one of the simple tips for, a hygiene maintenance as far as your financial health is concerned, is to ensure that in no circumstances should you ever exceed 40% of your take-home income in the form of any sort of debt repayment. Please, even if we have to, probably reduce our aspiration, that is still fine. Let's ensure that, this is in the interest of our financial health, and the fact that, in the second innings, we don't have any sort of a dangling sword on our heads. Not understanding the fine print, I'm sure all of us have been victims to it at some point in time or other. I have definitely been one, in many cases, effectively, because all the documents that we typically have run into pages, right? And there is so much of technical stuff that is written on it. I'm sure you guys are information security people, so I'm sure you will have a lot of understanding of stuff. But many times we don't know what is actually meant in terms of the written thing and the actual message. There are so many clauses, there are exclusions that are there, and very many times, A, we don't have the time. 2, we don't really know what, the kind of forte that is required to understand that. Probably we don't have it, and we sign on the dotted line not really knowing what we're getting into. And that can clearly give us rude shocks more than pleasant surprises at some point in time in the future. So one of the biggest, lessons that I had, and I would like to share this with you, is please ensure that you vet it, through an expert before signing on the dotted line. Listening to casual investment advice. I'm sure all of you would agree that as a corporate professional, I think one of the luxuries that we have is the, chai katta and the lunch table conversations. I mean, that is not a time when we talk business. That's a time when we talk about our families, we talk about what's happening in each one's lives. And that definitely somewhere, boils down to what is it that we're doing? कहाँ पर invest करना है, कैसे पैसे बनाने हैं. These questions definitely have a lot of discussions that happen. And then there is a friendly neighbor who probably, suggests, hey, you know what, this is a great product. Why don't you put your money into it? Now, that gentleman or that lady probably is talking, from a perspective of that product working well for him or her. But the point is, you do not know, or he or she doesn't know whether that is relevant in your life situation or not. So taking it at face value without vetting it through your financial advisor is a huge recipe for disaster, right? So clearly, everything has its own risks and rewards. You need to know what is it that you need to do and what is it that you shouldn't be doing to ensure that you are not in a financial mess. Well, I think this is something that's a very emotional aspect, which is spending from your retirement fund. And I feel very, very sorry. And I've seen this happening time and again with people, right? That's somewhere the Indian culture that comes into play. Unfortunately, suddenly, we are always there for our children. We want to do everything that our children want, right from taking care of their educational aspirations, whatever they wish to do. We are always there for our children. But we don't even blink, an eyelid when we think that, oh, if there is something that is, asked of us to deliver at this stage of your life, where you do, you have to dip into your retirement fund to make it happen. Please, it's a very, very sincere request. Please keep your emotions at bay. You might think that you're helping your children, but please understand that you're jeopardizing your second innings. If you want to lead the second innings with a sense of pride and a sense of fulfillment, please don't ever do this in terms of, pulling out money from your retirement to take care of any kind of commitment. You've been there, done it all. You've done whatever is in the best of your capacity, but this is a big no as far as your second innings needs to be taken care of. So now that we know what are the mistakes that we should avoid, then we need to know what is the the path that we should take. What's the right way of doing it? This is what we call the right way, and it's a three-legged mechanism or an exercise that we call the plan, process, product approach. Now, what's a plan? It's basically a foundation laying stage. It's very simple. It's all about understanding your why with your money. What is your purpose with your money? It is so important. And the you that I'm talking about, every you in it, whosoever is attending this session is very, very different. So the why for each one of you could be very different, right? So it's very important to understand what is your purpose with your money. And that, if understood, clearly sets the stage right to give you a rationale which is relevant, which makes it absolutely apt to ensure that you are able to take the right financial decisions. Now, when you know the why for your strategy, or what is your purpose with your money, then you are able to probably do a little bit of think through from a perspective of a bigger logical question of how much is enough. Now, very many times when I sit for a discussion with my clients, one thing that I've observed, when it comes to investment, when it comes to planning for the retirement, if I ask them really how much is enough, this is a question, in the first instance, people are totally blank. They are clueless on what's the number that they're chasing. All that they know is kitna takka milega. How fast can I grow my money? What is the growth that I can see? How can I double or triple my money? Is that a relevant yardstick? It could be one of the measures to do it. But mind you, this is something beyond your control, right? Something that you might get into. If it's not relevant in your scheme of things, at one point in time, it might look lucrative, and the very next minute, it can have a huge, cascading impact on your finances and could be a doomsday for all you know, right? So please understand, the first question that we need to understand is what is the purpose with your money? And if you know that, the next logical question that we should be able to arrive at is how much is enough. If I know and have answers to this, then I can answer the subsequent questions in terms of when do I need the money, right? And what is it that I'm looking at from a risk perspective if I were to, address that particular objective? Isn't it so very important to understand some of these key, requirements to arrive at what should be forming a part of my investment strategy, right? So this is the foundation laying stage that we call the plan stage. The next stage that we're talking about, that we have mentioned as process, we name it in our language we call it financial fitness checkup. And it's very, very apt, right? It's like going for a, executive health checkup. All of us, we do it probably either out of compulsion because, our company makes it mandatory that every year we need to have an executive health checkup, or because it gives us a tax benefit. So we kind of have to submit the bill. So we go ahead and do it. But the point is, please understand why this is so critical, right? The idea is, in case there is anything that is going wrong at a very nascent stage, it can be picked out, plugged, and things can fall back into place very early on in life. If it is ignored, it's not given the necessary importance, it can have a boomeranging impact on it, and that can clearly mess up with your financial health. So a financial fitness checkup would go into a post-mortem of all the financial decisions that you've been taking till now, okay, which could have been relevant, which could have been ad hoc in nature, but we want to try and understand, is it relevant in your situation as on today? Because anytime you will realize that life is so dynamic, it can pose challenges, it can pose sudden surprises for you, and it is left to us in terms of how we are able to react to it, how we are able to take care of that situation and wear through that condition, right? If we want to do that, we have to be continuously in a situation of understanding that the plan is always live, the plan is active, relevant to our life situation at that very point in time. To be able to do that, we do a post-mortem, try and understand what is appropriate, brilliant, what is not appropriate, what is the course corrective measure that you need to take so that you can realign and ensure that all your financial decisions are now getting synced to your objective that you want to take care of. And finally, there has to be something that will make all of this happen. And that is what we call the right mix of products. And this is where asset allocation plays a huge role. And that starts with, as I said, understanding your purpose and understanding really how much is enough, because that will clearly give you the right balanced diet of products, which will mitigate risks on one side, which will ensure that it has to grow at a bare minimum pace that it needs to be able to grow your investments meaningfully, to create that how much that you have thought for yourself to make your plan a reality. So effectively, the asset allocation will clearly, go in sync with when you need the money to come to you for the purpose that you want to make it happen, understanding how much is enough, and thereby ensuring that your risks are mitigated to the maximum extent possible, that there is enough insulation that you can set on your investments. It's not an X and zero game that we're playing here, right? Great. So first we talked about the why, and I'm sure all of us will agree that, these are the typical whys that we would have in our lives, which can, if we were to, segregate that, we would talk about, the whys, which is effectively situations that we are absolutely responsible for making it happen for ourselves and our loved ones, right? There is nothing that will, give us any sense of peace if we kind of shirk away a responsibility because we don't have enough. We can't, take shield under ignorance or under the fact that, oh, I didn't know I needed to have so much, or I don't have this, XYZ, so I will not be able to take care of my child's education. Or, if there is an emergency, I'm sorry, but I don't have the money here because it's elsewhere and I'm not able to take care of it. That is absolutely a ridiculous thing to, give us a false consolation. So we are responsible for it. And these are, as we say, critical, crucial, mandatory, and have to be taken care of. And the second aspect is the aspirational part, right? All of us are working so hard today. Don't we want to ensure that these aspirations are also fulfilled? Of course, we have the right to make it happen, but it's only we who can do it, right? So we need to work towards understanding the why and working towards it. Now, in the context that we are all talking about, which is retirement, let's try and understand how do we know how much is enough? And here again, time and again, I have seen, during my discussions with my clients, that there is a huge gap between the perception about a requirement versus reality, and that is clearly the game changer. Let's try and understand how it can play a huge, spoil sport. So here is with a simple case, of retirement, gentleman at the age of 55, wanting to retire at 60, life expectancy at 90. The requirement that he thinks that will be good enough for him to continue to lead the lifestyle of his choice is about a lakh of rupees per month. Now, this gentleman felt that he will be able to build up a corpus of 1.5 crore in the next 5 years to ensure that his retirement can be absolutely well taken care of. He was so thrilled that yes, it's so simple, and that too at a very simple growth of 9%. And you've seen the calculations right here on the screen. Is that as simple as that? I think there is one very major component. Unfortunately, he missed out in the entire calculation, and that is what we call inflation. You will realize that the gentleman thought 1.5 crore would be sufficient, but what he really needs is about 3.37 crores, more than double of what he anticipated to be. Now, this is the gap that I'm talking about when we start thinking and saving for an retirement. If we really do not know what we are chasing, we might end up with the wrong numbers, and it could be a huge dampener with our life commitments that we have set for to meet. So here is yet another very important aspect, as I said, very critical. It's just an extrapolation of the same case study. We talked about the gentleman at the age of 55, and now we're looking at somebody who's at the age of 45, probably with the same aspiration of having a wonderful retired life, at the age of 60, with the same need of a lakh of rupees per month. Now, what I'm trying to, bring to you here is the fact that, starting really well in time is so very important. And if you don't do that, the cost of delay can really play havoc with your finances, right? You will see that right here, that a person at the age of 45, while he would need about 5.5 CR to be able to sustain a lifestyle that he wishes to lead, which probably the gentleman at the age of 55 just needs about 3.37 crores, then because this gentleman at the age of 45 has 15 years to make it happen, he can start with a saving of about 1.25 lakh per month to make this a reality, build up a corpus of about 5.5 CR in 15 years, as against the gentleman who just has 5 years, and because of which 5.5 lakhs is a kind of saving that he needs to, cough up and put it or plumb it into his investing strategy. And this might sometimes be probably, absolutely not practically feasible, correct? And the mistake has been where? It's been the cost of delay that we have, done because of procrastination, or we thought that we don't have enough, we will start when we have enough, and so on and so forth. But please understand that time waits for none. And this is a very classic, very simple example to tell you that the earlier you start, financial freedom is there with you when you want it. Now that we've known everything, we just spoke about all the aspects that we need to take care of to ensure that our second innings can be truly enjoyable, truly golden, truly wonderful. And I'm going to be presenting to you a case study of a real life case study of a client of ours, a family, okay, whom we help in this very, critical aspect of accumulating this corpus by going through that entire exercise of trying to understand how much is enough, what are the things that this family had created over the years, how relevant was it, and what is it that they would need to bridge the gap that we saw from what they were having today vis-a-vis what they needed to have by the time they decide to retire. So here is a case study. Mr. Kamath, aged 40, wanting to retire at 50, wife also working, the joint monthly income is 5 lakh. Okay, and they are typically into all these asset classes that one is into as a corporate executive. They do have an EMI of a lakh of rupees per month, but I would want you to make an observation here that thankfully this family clearly planned their loan repayment schedule well, right? He is wanting to retire at age 50, and this particular EMI will be done by the time he is 50. So this is a big learning that if we want to really start our second innings well, I think the first thing that we need to understand is we can't have a single paisa of debt on our head as a dangling sword when we decide to hang up our books. Okay, so this was one good thing that has happened in his situation. Well, his household expenses at this point in time are 2 lakhs per month. So you would have to bear with me where I present to you how we help this particular family, right? Just give me a second, please. Okay. Yes. Is my presentation visible? I think. Just give me a second. Okay. So we're talking about Mr. Kamal, who is wishing to retire at the age of 50. His monthly need is 2 lakhs per month as on today when he's at the age of 40. So at the age of 40, 2 lakhs, please understand that what is missing typically, as I said, in a perception requirement, people think 2 lakhs is what he needs forever. But what he needs by the time he hits 50, he needs about 3.5 lakhs per month. Okay, and this is also further going to get inflated. Just because one stops working doesn't mean retirement is going to be so cool that there is going to be no further inflation, right? So accept that inflation is having to coexist with you, and you need to play smart with your money to ensure that you're able to beat inflation in the long run. So the idea is, we told him that, look, for you to be able to ensure that you want to lead the lifestyle of your choice at an age that you want to do it, you need to be able to build up a corpus of about 10.3 CR by the time you're 50. So he had 10 years to make it happen. And what it's showing here is, if he hadn't really done anything till the age of 40, he would have had to start with a monthly saving of 4.4 lakhs, which is what I was telling you that, if you are not really prepared for it, it can clearly, sometimes boomerang. Just 1 second. Yes, I hope it's visible again. Or do I have to be present? Okay. So as I said, yes, this was one thing that was very, very critical, but we also made him realize another critical aspect. We told him that he needs to necessarily have an additional health corpus over and above the retirement kitty that we just saw he needed to have. The reason being, if he is not ready for a medical eventuality in the future, and I'm telling you through my personal experiences with progression in age, dementia, Parkinson's, any of these situations like even Alzheimer's for that matter, clearly calls for assisted living, and it's a huge cost that one needs to look at. I know this because I have my father in that phase of life, and I know how difficult it is, not just to see him there, but also to realize that it's a cost that we need to ensure to take care of him out there, right? And this is what we're talking about. When as we grow older, because of the kind of lifestyle that we are leading, we do not know what to anticipate. Also, the fact remains that while we might say that yes, we have enough health insurance, please understand that just as inflation plays a role in every other sphere, your medical expenses are also skyrocketing. We are saying that this is one contingency that we should ideally be setting aside over and above your retirement, so that in case there is a medical situation that calls for a supplementary requirement, and that's an age where you don't have any other source of income getting generated. You need to have some sort of a pool to take care of this situation. So here we told him to have a 40 lakhs of health corpus over and above the health insurance that they already enjoy, which would mean that in the next 10 years it would be about 75 lakhs additional to the retirement corpus that he would need to build up. The idea was so that the retirement corpus can last a lifetime for this family and not get depleted because of a sudden unplanned withdrawal that can happen in the future, right? So let's see if this gentleman or this family had to do this, how did we help them? Okay, we realized that yes, 5 lakhs is their joint monthly income, out of which about a lakh of rupees was an EMI that they were looking at. 2 lakhs was their monthly expenditure, right? So effectively they had about 2 lakhs of savings, right? Over and above that, they also had these assets that we just saw, 30 lakhs into FDs, mutual funds 50 lakhs, about ULIP policies of 20 lakhs, PF accumulated to the tune of about 75 lakhs, stocks, PMSs about 50 lakhs, and they had a property, or they have a property that they've just bought that they're paying a EMI on to the tune of about 1 crore rupees. Okay, now what we did was we tried to ensure that all these existing assets could be mapped appropriately to this goals. So you will see that we mapped all of this, and we realized that the FDs that he had set aside, we told him that what is relevant for you as far as an emergency is concerned, let's keep that in an FD. But whatever you need for the money to grow meaningfully to beat inflation, it cannot stay in an FD. And that was a course correction that I was referring to. We helped him, realize that, and we accordingly channelized. By doing that, we realized that there would be a gap which he could bridge by way of ensuring that he puts in this money that we're talking about, which is 2 lakhs of saving that we saw right now, right? You will see that 2 lakhs of saving, he would be able to address these critical situations with a small top-up that he can absolutely comfortably manage over a period in time because of the salary increments, etc., that is going to come on for the next 10 years, right? So this was something that gives him absolute clarity to ensure that he could clearly see that his retirement aspiration at the age of 50 could be a reality. Okay, so now coming back to the real life presentation that we had, is the presentation visible to everybody now, or is it still showing the other screen?
The presentation is visible. Just go in a slideshow mode. That will be okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I just wanted to see if it's visible. Thank you so much. Yeah. So if I were to summarize, what are the key areas that you need to focus on to ensure that your second innings are truly wonderful? The first thing is a retirement plan needs to be chalked out well in advance with a clear, definitive time frame when you want to make it happen and the quantum that would be required to make it happen. The second is health corpus that is sizable for both self and your dependents, your loved ones that really matter to you. A contingency corpus to take care of any sort of a sudden eventuality that you might not be prepared or anticipating. You need to have something that is set aside. Typically that could also depend on the kind of a business role that you're into, the kind of insecurity that comes with the job, or it could be something that you think can be set aside as a quantum for any sort of a situation that you might have to deal with. Ensure that all your crucial family commitments are provided for, especially when you're thinking about early retirement. I know for the fact that there'll be a lot of people where the children are probably in the critical years of their academic careers. We can't jeopardize that to take care of our aspirations. So we need to be thoroughly sure that while yes, we need to have enough for our retirement to take care of our second innings, we also need to ensure that we have enough and more to address the other family commitments that are there. That is our responsibility to be managed, right? Managing cash flow very well while working. I'm sure I don't need to really talk much. We need to understand what are the likely income leakages that we've been seeing. How can we ensure that those leakages can be plugged? What are the gaps that we see? How do we optimize on the savings? These are some of the things that we need to ensure when we are working very, very prudently, very consciously. Risk mitigation tools to be in place, be it health or life. please ensure that everybody has sufficient health insurance. I don't think we need another pandemic to give us life lessons on this front. So please ensure that health insurance is not an unwanted expenditure. It is a mandatory expense. Think of it as one of your lifestyle expenses, but please ensure that you cover yourself for your health and for your life. A life cover, what I mean by that is to ensure that you have enough term cover. It is not meant to make money for you. It is meant to take care of you and your loved one in case of an eventuality of the death of the breadwinner, right? So these are critical, risk mitigation tools that one needs to understand. Prudently reviewing your investments and consolidation of portfolio, because nothing is constant. It's so very dynamic. Your external parameters are so different. The macro level, parameters could change. That everything can change. Your life in itself is so dynamic. So it's very, very important to continuously, and prudently review the investments and understand that, when you're deciding to hang up your boots, one thing that you need to realize is please ensure that you consolidate your portfolio. If this is going to be all over the place, it's going to be very difficult, because neither will it help you focus on what you wish to do to make it truly happy for you, because you will have to be, managing and juggling. And in case of any unfortunate eventuality, it is very, very difficult for the family to, hold on to the reins and take it forward. And with that comes the next critical aspect that I would like to bring across to you, is to ensure that all your documentation is in order and the family is aware of it. We have seen instances where the bread earner for the family is in absolute control of everything, knows what is what, how it needs to be done, and so on and so forth. But the family is not in the picture, not because he doesn't want to share it, but either the partner or the responsible family members do not want to take interest in it. But that doesn't stop you from ensuring that they are at least aware of the basic. At least they know whom to go to in case of an eventuality. They know that the documentation is all in place. When I say order, it needs to ensure that it is again mitigated, insulated in the best possible way to avoid any sort of hassles, any sort of conflicts at a future date. And of course, the best practice is to ensure that the will is ready before you hang up your boots. So finally, coming to, the pyramid, that's the building blocks, all set in order, all the peripheral aspects that we are going to consider that we just learned now. Well, balanced spending, stable income. So effectively having a saving budget of 30%, as I discussed before we think about a spending budget. Contingency, as I said, anywhere between 6 months to 12 months to ensure, depending on what is the kind of lifestyle that you have. Health and life insurance, as I said, absolutely mandatory. Balanced EMIs, ensure that don't go overboard on your borrowing strategy. Ensure that you restrict yourself to 40% of your total take-home income and only get into good debts, right? Primary financial goals. These are critical mandatory life goals that you are responsible for, and we don't have the luxury of shirking our responsibility and walking out of the scene, because it concerns our loved ones, right? So primary financial goals is something that we need to be sure are well taken care of before we hang up our boots. The secondary goals are the aspirational ones, the feel good ones that we would want to do. If we are able to achieve that, that's a fantastic space to be in. And legacy planning. I mean, that's the ultimate phase, right? I mean, that's where you've been there, done it all. I'm sure nobody can really point a finger at you and say, oh, you should have taken this decision much better, because you've done it all right to reach that stage of enjoying life to the fullest, and also ensuring that you're leaving behind enough, either for the next generation or passing it on in the form of, giving back to the society in terms of philanthropic activities. So, now that we know that we have reached the stage, that cusp where I am all set to, excited at one point in time that I want to kind of hang up my boots, I'm going to be doing it. But there is that lingering fear, right? That yes, I have created the corpus that I wanted to. I have taken care of all that I should be taking care of to ensure that my second innings are, well taken care of. I have tried to, bridge the gaps. I have seen, what is it that needs to be stitched. All of that to the best of my ability, I have taken care of. But there is still the lingering question: am I really sorted? Do I really have enough? Right? When somebody clearly gets an answer to that, that's the time when I have seen that they're absolutely ready to take the plunge in full, enthusiasm. And that's happened with a lot of my clients. And I feel very happy for them to have reached that stage. But to be able to do that, you need to understand what is the retirement objective you're talking about, right? We call it the 5 L's of retirement. The first one is having enough liquidity at all points in time, because this is a stage in your life, in spite of the best plan that you might have thought through, implemented, life has so many other situations that you might not have anticipated. Liquidity is the king at this phase of your life. Okay, very important. No liability, we've discussed that. Lifestyle maintenance, right? One will always want to ensure that the lifestyle that you enjoy all the time that you've been working, right, and making it happen, you would want to continue that for the rest of your life, right? And that's not a big ask. Longevity. If longevity is in your genes, I think it should be a boon and not a bane that you need to cry about, right? And you really need to make the most of it. And finally, as I said, a legacy or an inheritance or something that you want to leave behind to whomsoever you want to. If these are the things that you're able to address with your retirement corpus, I think you have reached, right? I'm sure all of us will clearly agree that these are things that really matter to us when you enter this phase of our life. So I'm going to be telling you how we've been helping our execs to finally take that plunge, to give them that assurance that, look, you can be sorted. This is what you have. Let's see how we are able to address the 5 L's that we're talking about. So I'm going to go back to my case study.
Hey, Ranjani, just wanted to keep you posted. We just have 3 more minutes left. Okay.
Oh, okay. So this is something.
Yeah, you're going great. I'm sure you don't have, you did not realize what time it is. So maybe 5 more minutes.
Yeah. Case study. That's okay. And then,
cool.
We should be done. So just give me about 3 minutes or 4 minutes. I think I should be done.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks for, informing me about the time. Just give me a second. I'll just move myself to. Is the screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
You're able to see the Happy Rich Retirement Solution screen?
That's right.
Okay, brilliant. So we talked about the case study of Mr. Kamath. Fast forward, when he is going to be reaching the age of 50. Let's see what is the situation, right? So we're talking about Kamath and his wife Deepa. Okay. Now we did mention that 2 lakhs per month is what they require. So ideally, that was at the age of 40. By the time they actually hit 50, the need is effectively 3.5 lakhs per month. While we've given this as a breakup into 3 categories, because what we realized, as I said, from our learnings from retirees, was that, the phases typically get, split into these categories, understanding that the priorities keep changing over the years, right? So, we have kept this constant just for an understanding purpose in terms of looking at 3.5 lakhs. But as you will all agree, the initial years is absolutely flamboyant from a perspective of really wanting to make the most of it, as it's a start of a new innings that you've always been looking forward to, right? So lifestyle is at its peak. Socializing, travel, everything's at its peak. But slowly after 70, these kind of take a little bit of a backseat from a perspective of being there, done it all, and it's more of a slight, sensitivity attached to the medical requirements that we might have. And post 76, it is about sustainability of the person. So typically that's why it's broken up, because that's how the requirement changes. But in this case, we've kept it constant, right? Now, 3.5 lakhs per month. Okay, here we have a rental income. They mentioned that they do have this property of 2 CR. So let me just kind of give you an understanding of this. Just give me 1 minute as I. Okay. Right. And this is what he has created. This is what Mr. Kamath was supposed to do. 10.3 is what we realized what he needs. So 10.5 CR is what he will be building up. Or if in this case study, if I were to think about him as somebody who's reached the age of 50, 10.5 CR is what he has. This is the kind of breakup, about 8.5 CR in different sorts of equity category and 2 CR of property that he still holds. Okay. Now let's see whether this will help him take care of the 5 L's that we're talking about. Okay. Now I'm going to be removing this only because we have already taken care of a medical requirement for him. And I'm going to be explaining to you what exactly I'm talking about, right? Now, out of the 10.5 CR, 2 CR is in the form of a property. So we've set that aside and we've tried to figure out whether this alone in the form of his liquid assets would be good enough for him to take care of the 5Ls, which is lifestyle sustenance, which is as safe as it can get, liquidity at all points in time, taking care of longevity, lasting him a lifetime, and is there a possibility to leave behind enough, for the next generation. So what we did was, the first responsibility for us was, one of the things that we did not have to worry about was for medical contingency, because we've already created a separate corpus, which we said is about 75 lakhs that's been set aside. For the emergency also, we have, kept about 15 lakhs. That is yet a different setup. We are talking about only the kitty that is there for managing this 5 years. What we did was, we created a ladder of income for this family for a period of 7 years. Okay. The idea of creating this ladder of income was to ensure that we wanted to insulate the payouts from all sorts of market fluctuations or market erratic, performances, which could, jeopardize or which could compromise on the payouts. We did not want that to happen. So what we did for this family was to set aside the entire requirement annually that he needs. After taking into consideration, he did say that he has a rental income also coming for 50,000. So ideally, 3 lakhs is the gap, on a monthly basis. So that comes to 36 lakhs. So you would see we've created a ladder of income for 7 years. Now, this would ensure that his lifestyle sustenance would be well taken care of. And that's the only objective of that. What is left with the remaining amount, what we did was, we said that we also want to ensure that his longevity is protected, right, to the maximum extent possible. Now, we knew that if we were to just set aside everything into an absolutely insulated environment, it will definitely not serve that purpose. So what we did was, after addressing this, the remaining component, we actually invested into diversified equity funds. Now, there could be two outcomes out of it. One, the fact that the 7-year period, absolutely all requirements of his well taken care of in terms of medical needs, contingency, in terms of his payouts. So there is no necessity for him to actually dip into this corpus which has been invested, okay, which is a very ideal situation. And in that case, it means that in about 7 years, we believe that this is something that can grow anywhere between 11 to 12%. And we would look at least a corpus of about 10 CR being built up over 7 years. In case a situation arises that over the 7 years, there is an additional requirement over and above, the baskets that we have set aside for the commitments, we would clearly pull the money out of this particular corpus and ensure that it gets replenished to take care of a situation that needs immediate attention. Okay. So whatever be the condition, every 7 years, the idea was to clearly, pull the entire money out of equity and then create a ladder of income for the next 7 years. And this happens in a threshold of 7 years. Why 7 years? Of course, the idea was, in his case, with the income need, with the kind of growth, with the kind of risk profiling that we did, this was a good situation. There are some for whom we could look at 10 years, for some we could look at 5 years. It's all very, very dynamic and very customized. But I'm talking about a real life situation of this gentleman. And what we did was, then we said that after 7 years, we'll pull the money out from here and again create a ladder of income for the next 7 years, thereby ensuring that all those baskets which have got emptied in the form of lifestyle payouts being utilized or a medical situation that had to be addressed, we would do that. And once all that has been taken care of, we would again, ensure that the remaining component goes into equity. So that way we could address key things in terms of lifestyle sustenance, ensure that the payouts are available to them exactly the way they wish to have, month on month, year on year. There is safety of capital. At the same time, this corpus, at a bare minimum growth of 9.6% without the property, would have lasted till the age of 85. Of course, at this stage, there is a property which probably, if it grows, will add an additional 5.5 CR. But we told him that this could be further, improvised, or it could have been much better if we look at another scenario where we have the property, where he knew that his children are not going to come back, and stay in that property. They said, if you actually sell the property and do the same story all over again, we, were able to show him that the situation would be absolutely well addressed. Just give me 1 more minute. I'm sorry to take this time, but I think this is very critical. So just give me 1 second. Please bear with me for another minute while I just complete this, and I will leave you for the question and answers. I know I'm taking about 3 minutes extra, but please bear with me on this. Because this is very critical and I definitely do not want to miss out on that. Am I able to show you that, or it's not visible on the screen? Yes. Okay, so the same story, with the property sold, 10.5 CR is what we are looking at. Just look at the difference. We said that the earlier situation, well, he could sustain his lifestyle till the age of 85, but with this additional thing, there will be two key things that you need to notice. One, now the rental income is not happening, so effectively we'll have to provide for the entire 3.5 lakhs, which will amount to about 42 lakhs annually. And if we were to do the same thing that we did in the earlier situation, again maintaining a very considerable conservative or a balanced growth approach, this money will not just last him a lifetime, but he's going to be able to leave a legacy behind. I mean, this is what we're talking about, the corrective measures that, if taken well in time, how it can ensure that it can, it can continue to have a very, very comfortable position with your finances, and you can be in the best of financial health. So with this, I leave you all with a thought. I hope this did have some valuable insights for you. Once again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present this to you. Thank you.
Hey Ranjini, amazing session. Though we don't have time for Q&A, but I still want Vivek ji to go ahead and ask one question because he has already raised hand. So Vivek ji, go ahead, ask your question now. And you have permission now to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Vivek ji, go ahead.
Okay. So I have two questions. One is a lot of people talk about when you invest for a house or a car, should you buy or should you lease it? What is your view on that? The second question I have is about how do you gain, what are your charges from Happiness Factory? Is it outcome based? Is it linked to, let's say, our retirement in 5, 10, 15 years? So these are two questions which I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so to be able to answer the first question, okay, in terms of figuring out whether you should buy a property or lease a property, okay, I am very clear about this, and again, it differs from family to family, okay, their requirements, because when we think about property is effectively something that is for self-consumption. So everybody's, again, the purpose, their why for owning or renting out is different, right? Typically in the initial years of your work life, you would probably be more comfortable renting out a space because you will be staying closer to work, you'll be able to mingle with your crowd during that period, so you would rather do that rather than having a property really far off, which probably takes a lot of your commute time and so on and so forth. But slowly, once the family steps in, you also need to take that into consideration, thinking about the child's schooling and all of that, which means that it's good to have a roof over your head. But what we've also, what I would like to clearly convey here is, property for self-consumption absolutely is a personal, decision. But if you're looking at property as something, as an investment strategy, I think I'm not for it there. I wouldn't recommend that. So I hope that kind of clarifies your answer. If you were to say whether it is lease or buying it out, as I said, it's sometimes the commercials could be very different, could be very lucrative in certain instances, but it is also about your family's comfort, right? Okay. When it comes to the second question in terms of the fee structure, let me tell you today, I think for us, the fee comes in the form of, people referring us to, 10, 15, 20 people. It comes in kind. We don't charge a single paisa to our client. We're doing this huge, service absolutely free for our clients, because we believe that, one well understood situation, one change in somebody's life can clearly, trigger ripples of happiness, and that is what is going to bring in business. Today, if you look at it, in the last 17 years, building up a business portfolio of about 4,500 crores is not easy for anybody, right? And we don't have budgets to really market ourselves and so on and so forth. But our clients have been our loudspeakers, which has made it happen for us. So if I were to answer this question to you, for us, really nothing matters. Yes, the way we manage our overhead costs, if that is the question that you have, then it only happens through the trail commissions that we get from mutual funds, and that is minuscule, but only because the entire value proposition for us is about an engagement model which doesn't last transactional or is not for a year or two, but for a lifetime that we're talking about, and where we know of second generation also following suit. That is what ensures that we are able to manage it, because their investments last with us for decades. That's how we've grown our business. If I've been able to answer this question.
Great, Ranjani ji. Thank you very much. Great noble cause that you are doing. So really appreciate that. Folks are asking more questions. So guys, if you want to exit, feel free to exit. Nobody will feel offended that you exited earlier. We are already 12 minutes ahead of schedule. But people want to ask question, and let's do that, right? Anybody wants to exit, do that. Before we come to the question, just couple of things, guys, before you exit. If you want to download your participation certificate, what you can do is you can go to the EliteCISOs website, click on events, click on upcoming events, and click on CP certificate. Once you click on it, this will take you to a different form. Fill the form, put your email address where you want the certificate, put your full name, and the secret to download the certificate is PCI. Why PCI? Because we are coming up with a exclusively designed PCI DSS workshop for Elite CISO members. So you can go ahead and register for this as well. This is planned from 21st and 22nd January, the weekend. It's an 8-hour workshop, and it is highly discounted for Elite CISO members. It is just 3,500 for the members. So I'm sure you can take benefit of it. In future, I'm not sure if we are going to plan this one recently or not, or in near future. So this would be planned maybe in 6 months or something like that. So if you want to register for this one, go ahead and register, and then you will you will get the confirmation. I'll share the schedule and everything. That's what I wanted to mention before we jump to the another question by UK. Okay, Mr. UK, I believe that.
Before you start that, can I just ask you one question? Because
Sure.
Two things. One is my coordinates are on the slide. Are you guys able to see that? If
not really. So I was sharing my slide. So I was sharing my screen. So I will stop sharing, and then you can share it again. And apart from it, a feedback form has also been sent in the chat. I've already shared that. So go ahead, guys, share your feedback and share your details so that Ranjani's team can connect with you if you want to have one-on-one session or want more insights around this. So that's how it is. So Ranjani, I am going to stop sharing my screen. You can put your coordinates on the screen now. And meanwhile, UK, go ahead, ask your question.
Thank you, Vikas. It is really a useful session. So the investment which will be routed through Happiness Factory, is it through the direct mode in the mutual funds or the regular mode?
It will be the regular mode, because we will have to have a control on all the investments, because otherwise it's not a plan that's just done and given to you and then you take care of it, because you never know what kind of course corrections that might be required over a period in time. So to answer your question, it needs to be done through the regular mode, through the happiness factors.
Thank you.
Great. And Prashant was raising hand. Prashant, you want to ask your question? You had raised and then lowered it down, so I'm not sure. That happened a couple of times. Anybody else wants to ask any other question? Please raise your hand.
I just wanted to check with you all. Could you kind of make sense out of what I mentioned? It will be great if you could just give your thoughts, on what I presented, because this is clearly through, all that we've been doing for our clients, right? And I would definitely want you guys to share with me how did it make sense to you?
Great. They can put in chat. They cannot unmute themselves, but we have got two more questions coming in. One is from my very good friend Rajesh Panchalji from Mumbai. Rajesh ji, go ahead, ask your question now.
Yeah, thanks, Vikas. Ranjani ji, I think so. Most of the things which you showed us, at my personal level, I'm doing, but you show it very methodologically. I think so. That was something very, very interesting and exciting. This was not the prospect what we were doing for last couple of years. So, my question is like, while walking through the slides and all, you were showing about some SIP investment and also this are market link.
Correct.
Now, trend wise, if you see like, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, like, the market has gone up and down, up and down, up and down.
Correct.
Now, that is the risk factor which in your one of the quadrant you showed, like, one is the risk bearing capacity. So percentage wise, how do you link that?
So I will tell you something very simple. Our risk mitigation is clearly from the asset allocation perspective, and the asset allocation perspective comes into play from understanding what is it that you want to do with your money, which means that if there is a specific need of yours, for example, say retirement, as we just spoke about, okay, and that is 10 years from now, it means that you have 10 years to make this particular goal a reality, which means that to be able to build up that corpus to, beat inflation, you need to grow at a bare minimum pace, which means that if a particular investment, say for example, I'm assuming that in 10 years, we are looking at a expected growth of about 11 to 12% on a conservative mechanism. And in the last 20 years, if I have the statistics to prove to me that on an average, over the last 20 years, in spite of all the ups and downs, the annualized growth has been almost about 15%, 14.91 to be precise. Okay. Now, the way we would do this is we are saying that what is the growth? The exact number is not something that I cannot, I am not the one who can predict that. But that is the reason why we are saying that we know that this is the corpus that we need to build up. To be able to build up, we need to have a growth of say 11 to 12%. Now, what is it that I can do best? I can try and mitigate, as you rightly said, I can mitigate the risk. How do I mitigate the risk? Whatever is long term, I will have a diversified, portfolio depending on risk profile in a way that, you don't have heavy skewing towards any one particular space, and it will balance the act in the sense that we all know that, equity as an asset class is not a straight line trajectory. There will be some which will, work well in one quarter while others will work well in the other quarter. So the combined effect of the diversified portfolio, the idea is to ensure that the bottom line is protected to the maximum extent possible. By doing this, we've been able to help not just protect the bottom line, but also being able to ensure that when the markets are high, we are able to ensure that the portfolio is growing very well, because we are very clear that we are associated only with fund houses who've been into existence for a sizable amount of time. There are, good corporate governance policies in place. The code of ethics are in place. So we are, confident about the fact that, by staying invested, understanding, monitoring, reviewing all of this, we will be able to, address the kind of expected growth that we wish to have to make that particular goal a reality. So it is not about any one specific thing. So also the case when I said risk mitigation, if it's an emergency, or as I said, I showed you the ladder of income that we are creating. If you looked at it onto the right hand side very closely, you would have also seen the expected growth there. So we are very clear that we will not jeopardize, or we will not do this hodgepodge mechanism of also wanting to grow at 12%, but also ensuring that the risks are not there. There is no such thing like that. It's a pure myth. So what we are trying to do is, on one side, we're mitigating the risk, which is like an emergency kitty, or which is required by you immediately, or where you do not want any kind of impact of market volatility. Then the expectation of growth also needs to be very clearly set in place, and that could be anywhere between say 4, 5, 6%, not beyond that. But at the same time, what is going to make up for the the growth part is the other space that will be, invested into long-term equity, because in the long-term equity, in spite of it being erratic, it will ensure that it will level out this particular, valuation, and will ensure that, the market risk is kind of plugged to the maximum extent possible.
And like, you mentioned fixed means asset is allocation in property, fixed deposit, and also equity link like mutual fund equity and all. But what about just a small tip on gold? Is gold worth investing for next 10 years, 15 years, or it is not?
So see, I'm telling you, gold as an asset class is a hedging mechanism. It typically comes into play when there is a lot of uncertainty in the economic space. That's the time when gold takes a, upward swing. But other than that, gold is one asset class which typically cannot go beyond 6-7% on an average. So if you're looking at something to really beat long-term inflation, I think equity is the only asset class which can help you do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great question, Rajeshji. Next question is from Vijay sir, and I'm sure the question is going to be how to ensure free flow of beer after retirement. So Vijay sir, over to you. Vijay sir, can you unmute yourself? Doesn't look like. Vikas Gupta had raised hand. Vikas, if you're still there, you want to ask your question, raise your hand again. I will unmute you. If not, then thank you very much, everyone. It's been a great session. Thank you, Ranjini ji. Recording will be available and we'll put it on our YouTube channel. Feedback form has been sent on the chat. So really appreciate if you can take a minute and fill the feedback form. Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm ending the meeting now. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for being so patient, throughout the session. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.